everybody, and welcome back to Baggage Claim. I'm Katrina.
I'm Julia, and this is a show about living with mental health in today's society. Tonight we have an episode for you about money, media, and mental health.
And I'm Mel. We're here every Tuesday at 8 o'clock live Eastern time. And we do need to remind you that we are not mental health professionals. We are mental health patients. And so if you are feeling like you need to reach out to somebody or you need a little help, there is a link in our bio. And also, if you feel at any point that you are having a moment of triggered feelings and you need to step away, we do post these guys online. You can always come back and skip through this part and come back to what we're saying or give yourself a break. And please do.
Absolutely. Very important. Ladies, let's dive in. I'm actually really excited about this episode. I think it's so relevant in our lives and in I think everybody's, especially right now. So who's starting?
I am starting tonight.
Yes.
Tonight we are talking. I took social media because I am a glutton for punishment. And no, I'm kidding. I actually have a lot of friends by way of social media. So it can be good and it can be bad. And that was something that I picked up on immediately. But we are going to talk more about the thing we love and know in our daily lives, the Twitter, the Facebook, the YouTubes that you're hopefully watching us on right now. Thank you very much.
Insta,
of course. I forget.
You
how
always
much
forget it.
It's my last. I did it tonight though. I did use it tonight, and I do check it every day, which is kind of I check it every day, and I check it a lot, and I find myself, and you guys will probably relate to this at least a little. I find myself picking up my phone and going until I have a round of my apps. You know, I hit the Twitter and then I hit the Facebook and then I hit the Instagram and I kind of go on a loop. The funniest thing to me though is when I set it down, I take 4 seconds and then grab it again and do it again. Like I wasn't just on there. And that's
that's by design. I mean, I was just watching that movie, The Social Dilemma. I don't know if anyone out there has seen it. It's a really good documentary.
Hi, Joseph. Thank you for joining.
It's a really good documentary, and they were talking about how everything on there is by design, like just the addiction of social media. So I'm sure we'll get into that, but definitely plays into what you're saying now.
And
my God!
Go ahead.
What first came to my mind is like you have a round of apps, like, and on the iPhone, like if you like pull down, it has all the apps that you visit, like all the time
regularly,
and that's it. That's the round of apps. It's like never ending,
and it is never ending. And I think that's I grabbed this video for us because I thought it was a good encompassation of what the feeling of, and I don't want to get too heavily. We can talk about toxic Twitter, we can talk about toxic Facebook, we can do that for hours, but there's plenty of that out in the internet world to tell you like raging on Twitter. I felt like there was something that needed to be surmised a little bit. And this video that Katrina is going to play for you, it's a thing called the fear of missing out. And I'm sure that everyone either relates to this or maybe I know I've seen this term float around before, FOMO, but I didn't necessarily know what it was. But then as soon as I watched I watched the video and I said, yes, this is exactly what my feeling is every time I put it down. So yeah, go ahead. This is really good. This will talk to you a little bit about it and get us started.
Sorry about that.
You're good. Perfect. FOMO, fear of missing out.
Social media, and you see this picture of some friends at a party. Scroll down and here's a video of a friend cliff diving in Cancun. A number of friends are talking about Garden Cop, and you haven't seen it yet. And now you start feeling something called FOMO, or fear of missing out. FOMO is the anxiety we experience when we feel there's something exciting happening elsewhere, and we're not a part of it. It's been around for a long time, but these days it's triggered mostly by posts on social media. Social media gives us instant access to the activity of our friends. That's what it's there for. And this can be a good thing, but it also makes it all too easy for us to compare our lives to theirs. This can lead us to second-guessing our decisions and feeling insecure in general. It can even get to the point when there's a looming sense of FOMO even when we're not online. So how do we kick this FOMO? An answer that might quickly spring to mind is to simply quit social media. But that's not practical for a lot of people. Instead of quitting, you can try limiting your time on it or even just taking a few days off. This can give you a chance to focus on what's important in your life and enjoy the things that you are doing without comparing them to others. The lives of our friends do sometimes look pretty exciting online, but let's put some quotation marks around the word lives. Their social media activity isn't their actual life per se. It's more of a highlight reel of exciting things they've posted to contribute to their online identity. It's easy to see these highlights and think, my life just isn't as exciting as theirs. But what we're usually not seeing is what's going on behind the scenes, the negative things or the boring routine of their day-to-day lives. They may post something awesome, but in the grand scheme of things, it's just a short snippet of their day. The odds are, when they're not out doing these awesome things, they probably experience just as much FOMO as you do.
And that is exactly, I felt like that encompassed everything. I especially like the fact that they talk about the lives with quotation marks. I felt like that was a really key point, which was that social media is not real life. It's social media. There's filters on social media. There's timing when you put your stuff out on social media. There's whole organizations of businesses out there who know when people get on and off social media the most, who make their money making sure that they put information out during lunchtime, in the 5 o'clock hour, during prime time, 8 o'clock. There's a term called the Friday afternoon news dump or Friday evening news dump now that is just like a universal thing that we all, anyone that's social media savvy at all, understands and knows that, oh, well, that's the story they're dropping politically or culturally or whatever on Friday night, so that we all talk about it and then they have something to work from on Monday. That's social media. And to try and like build our lives around what we're seeing is dangerous and can create anxiety and depression. And I loved that point, especially in everything they use to surround it.
Yeah, I really did too. And I think to kind of dive deeper into this whole, I'm going to go about Instagram because it's the most that I use. And this goes into kind of a money aspect, a little bit of it. I shop when I'm manic. Like that's what happens. I spend money, and it usually is a high and then leads you into a greater depression, right? But Instagram is, and I'm sure Facebook and YouTube and all of them just prey on the fact that they know at this point in time, I'm doing a lot of shopping and they know what I'm looking at. And those ads pop up like, on Instagram all the time. And I've been guilty of, I've bought off of Instagram. I mean, it's just this cycle, right, that never ends if you don't step away and not follow that.
Yeah, I mean, totally. The algorithm knows when you're manic. It knows when you're depressed. It knows when you're going through a bad breakup and you're spending time looking at old photos of the two of you. Like, it knows all of this. And you're right, it's preying upon you during these moments of vulnerability.
And the thing that
it's hard to like see it, like unless you like kind of step out of that. I don't think it's necessarily like easy to see. And I know it's happening, but.
And the one thing I would tell you guys is that not only are you correct, but there's, as you do the research about social media and mental health, you come across these articles that talk about things like, the head of Facebook saying, oh, it's just data that we're giving out to people. And they sort of are very dismissive, but they have been accused, all the social media companies now, and there are studies out there, but they've also been accused in public, in our discourse, of exactly what you just said, preying on people's moods. And what they do is they kind of write it off as, well, it's just data. It's just data that we're giving people about when people are sad in the morning and in the fall and at Christmas. Okay, but it's only data in a vacuum. It's not just data.
Well, who's the data for? It's for the businesses want to give that to the consumer. So there is a clear line there of what I call like being preyed upon.
Well, we are the product, right?
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
the advertisers are the sellers, and social media is buying, and we're the product.
Yeah, and they're capitalizing on us. And the best way to capitalize on us is to troll our social media for when we're sad. Or recently, and I'm not even joking about this, and I'm going to share this experience with everyone because I told you guys about it. When I'm scrolling through my Facebook or my Instagram and I get the ad for personalized pet dishes with my pet's name on it, the picture.
Yeah.
And my immediate thought, because this is how bad it is and invasive it is, I thought to myself, oh, look, that dog's got the same name as my dog. And then it like wound down in my head what had really happened.
Like,
and
nope.
I was like, oh my God.
I love Kia's comment too. Oh my God, I do
That's so
retail
creepy.
therapy as well. Then get a rush once it's delivered. And finally, I regret the purchase a few days later.
That is such a great
Been
point.
there,
That's
been there.
Oh, yeah.
There
It's
is
a
that
spiral.
rush of that. It's that dopamine hit when you get the purchase.
Yeah.
And for some people on social media, it's buying. For some people, it's raging. A lot of the Twitter-fueled rants that you hear about in social media are oftentimes something that, someone went and did this and they went off on a tangent. And I see a lot of my personal friends on Twitter because that's one I do use a lot. I use it in a meaningful way for me. And I know when to turn it off. But I see many friends who sort of have to be like, I'm taking, my 4-day standard time off here because I can't do this, because there's a lot of things like politics, especially, and in the current climate with it so hypercharged with political thinking and red team, blue team, whatever team you're on kind of stuff. That is a surefire way for people to really, angry, mean, toxic sorts of things where it's like, this needs to be put away. And I do see a big movement of people who are learning their limits, which I love, because they can call it out or be called out by other people in their community and go, you know what, you're right. And I talked to this person on here and I appreciate them and I'm going to take 2 days off. So there is encouragement coming out of social media that is the sort of flip side of the social media coin, which basically boils down to something like me. All of my friends live online. My 3 closest friends in the world, and you guys live in the cloud. You live in my favorite little Venn diagram that was a meme that made its way around was, where all my friends live. And it was a sliver that was pink and it was like, like 0.2%. And then it's like where all my other friends live. And it said Narnia or some shit. And I totally related to that. I have a friend in New Jersey, I have a friend in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and I have a friend in Ireland. And those are my 3 people that I talk to the single most. And now, but that's my life. So for someone like me who does deal with disability and mental illness, that point in the video about some people that's not realistic for, some people I am mentally helped by doing something like this, or by my podcast, or by playing video games with my friends on a social media platform like Discord. And so,
we're on a social media platform right now.
Right.
Same thing, right?
I did just take a break from Instagram for 1 or 2 months. And it was very rejuvenating, I must say. It was very freeing not to think about Instagram at all for that 30 to 60 days and just like carry on with life. And then, I was ready to come back to it when I did. And it's been nice the last couple days. But I'm not going to let it get out of hand.
I took some time off after about, I want to say April. And I just went offline completely for the most part, other than to messaging my friends privately. That was it. It's all I wanted to see or do. And I think you're straight on. And at the time I was so angry, I didn't have any withdrawals. I'd be curious, did you feel withdrawal from it at all? Or were you just good and ready to get off there?
Ready.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes people are like, I have to fast from my Instagram or my, whatever. But when I did it this year, it was very much like, I had a moment where I was like, if I never look at this thing again, it'll be too soon. But it taught me about my moderation, what my moderation level needed to be. But I still get into the cycle. I still get into the do. Insta, Facebook, Twitter, place the thing down, pick it back up.
I'm like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that even that, like, they're training us to do that, to do just what you're saying. Like, even the scrolling motion that we all do now, second nature, like breathing. We all do this with our finger all the time. That was, like, taught to us by social media. That scrolling wasn't a thing before that.
Well, Apple. Like, if you had an early Apple phone, you could scroll. And that was before a little bit before Facebook. But I agree. I mean, kids these days, like, talk about a whole nother level, but their life is kind of controlled around social media, I would say.
I would never ever want to. It would be hard to be a parent because you can't just do the exile from social media thing. That's just an unrealistic course to take for your child. You would end up doing more damage, more harm than good, in my opinion, if you try to keep your kids off social media entirely.
But it's like, how do you responsibly? Right. Do it.
I envy the parents. I respect a great deal the parents that I know who are trying and working on this very problem and have effectively, some of the parents I know, they go online with their kids. They don't try and exile them from social media, and they don't try and hover and, I want to do, but they do it with them. They, my sister went so far as to sort of like learn a couple of they have a Nintendo Switch and they started playing games together. And not only is she learning that she likes some of this stuff, she's seeing how social media can be helpful for my niece.
Be beneficial. Yeah. Right. I mean, because I think there are some things that are definitely beneficial to social media. Have that be having friends and connecting with your friends. Finding out new experiences or places. Like, that's something I love on Insta. Like, oh, where are they? Like, I want to go there. But so there are some good things. I'm sure there's some educational stuff in there. I don't know.
Yeah, there's great information and advocacy about mental health on social media. There's a lot of inspiring mental health influencers who are doing really good things.
Well, and we have the opportunity to do this. We can do something like you said it straight out earlier, just a little while ago. We can do this, and we can talk to the people that we're talking to, and we're building a community here. We have a bunch of you guys that have been coming to the show regularly, and that's awesome. You. And it's one of those things where you're like, okay, we can have positive outcomes, but how do we learn to balance that? But we're the generation that's forging that, and we're the adults in the room about social media now, or people in our age group, because we've had it long enough to know that it's going to be part of the daily life forever, but we're not so young as the kids in our lives and other people's lives who need to be taught to navigate something that we're literally learning to navigate kind of with them.
I'm just thinking, MySpace crew.
Oh my God.
We're all there.
Live journal. Even older. You want to hashtag date yourself. That's the one right there.
Oh my gosh, I was like a teenager when MySpace was out, and I'm so sorry, just totally side note. But you know how you could like put music on it? Mm-hmm. I would put music on it that like I knew people, like if it was a guy I liked or something, they knew that song was about them. Like, how?
Such a big decision.
This is an experience I didn't have, but I've talked to younger people and I talk to them about this exact thing because I like hearing, like, what is it like? School was terrible for you know what I'm saying? Like, school was horrible, and there were bullies, and there were, class systems and hierarchies and all of these things. Now, imagine that, like, some kid can make fun of you, essentially dox you after school.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know that, the most of the studies, the biggest thing that I saw about social media, unfortunately, is the part that it plays in depression, suicide, adolescent anxiety. That's dangerous stuff. That's the stuff where we as adults in the room need to make sure that we are helping the kids in our lives through that, because the bottom line here is that social media, those are minds that aren't developed yet. And if you were to jump, I mean,
they're being developed by that social media. That's the problem.
It's terrible because
terrible.
That's not health. There's no healthy discourse in general being had on social media. You have to understand how to whittle deeply down into social media to find a friend and to go hang out about a thing and to do the things online that, you said it. I've actually been to Ireland to visit my friend because of social media.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's been, 10 years practically since we all met, and he's been able to come here and these other things. But that was a 9-year journey as grown people with, at least some fundamental understanding of adulting. But,
absolutely
not a 7-year-old, not an 8-year-old, not a 13-year-old. 13 was like the worst age ever. I can't imagine having that dimension. Scary.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, is this what's next, or am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, we can do that.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's not the right one. It's how mental illness is portrayed in entertainment.
Oh, okay, there we go. That's the better
sense. Either one.
Whatever one you want.
Yes. So the entertainment industry. We're going to look at how mental illness is portrayed in the entertainment industry on film and television. First of all, there's no shortage of on-screen depictions of mental illness or mental health issues. Audiences will always want to watch things they don't quite understand, and for a long time, mental health hasn't quite been well understood. This allows producers, writers, directors, actors to kind of run in whatever direction they want to with it. So they've taken all of these liberties because there haven't been any hard and fast rules as far as what you do and don't do. However,
so it's basically like a stereotype. They're kind of
yeah. But as public awareness for mental health has grown and different celebrities have spoken out, there's a lot more accountability nowadays. And very slowly but surely, we are seeing some changes. There's a shift in how mental health is being portrayed on screen. A good example is Silver Linings Playbook from a few years ago.
Yeah.
It's difficult to imagine a flirtation over clozapine appealing to audiences just a short while ago. But Silver Linings Playbook featured just that, and it made over $200 million at the box office. So audiences are hungry for these type of stories. And the majority of Silver Linings Playbook was an authentic rendition of someone with bipolar. The ups, the downs, the meds, the therapy, the uncertainty, all of it. I don't know, Katrina, did you find that it was realistic?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, because we all have our own experiences when it comes to a bipolar disorder, I think.
Yeah.
But it was so different than when I feel like when I was growing up, or even a couple of years ago. Bipolar was you're this crazy person, and it's the Joker, just that kind of out there character.
Yeah.
And so it is nice to see that transition into this is the real portrayal of what can happen and what happens.
Yeah. To answer your question from before, as far as whether it was a stereotype, I think, yes, there are some big stereotypes happening, but also filmmakers didn't narrow down to one illness. They just sort of threw in the symptoms that they wanted to. So everything, every mental health issue, every mental illness was every mental illness.
Right.
And all of them were very extreme.
Yeah, it's like reefer madness.
That's what I remember. It's like
mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's reefer madness for mental illness.
But people didn't know any better, so they didn't say that's not a symptom of bipolar. That's absurd. They couldn't say that.
We don't lick paint chips. What are you talking about?
But characters with mental illness are no longer seen as uglifying roles, but they're seen as normal people to be played in disparate ways, just like regular people. That's the good part. The not so good part is that Well, you said it, Katrina. When you think of how mental health issues are portrayed in entertainment, what are the first images that come to mind? You said like a disheveled character running rampant through town.
Somebody is crazy, like crazy,
literally
Joker,
crazy, violent. A woman hearing voices as she plots revenge on her adulterous husband.
Yeah,
fatal attraction.
Exactly. and of course, to talk about that for a moment, throughout history, women have been, not just in entertainment, and just women in general, have been accused of hysteria, or have been dismissed and disparaged for being hysterical.
Yeah.
And many, even though we're past that idea in many regards, many films have stuck to that sexist idea to some extent, and have the sexist idea of the mad, wild woman.
Broads are hysterical.
Oh,
what?
Yeah. Broads are hysterical.
Exactly.
I actually, not to like sideline a little bit, but today they dropped, I think it was Nike, a little advertising here, but Megan Rapinoe did a very good advertisement that sort of ran really well through kind of how they portray women and are sort of different. You know, if you're being loud, you're being hysterical, and if you're being passionate, you're being these. And I was like, that's pretty cool. So it's I think it dropped today. I'm not like one to like go out on a limb for Nike, but the advertising and Megan Rapinoe, it's like is a legit like spokesperson for a lot of things and a lot of social justice. And I believe that was kind of I felt like, wow, that's a really good summation of sort of what it's like in all aspects, but especially because we are the only one, like women. If we had a problem, we got institutionalized. This happened to Bob's grandma. There was no like treating someone or talking to them or anything. It was like, oh, she's lost her mind, throw her in an institution. That was terrible. And that makes your mental health worse.
And that's been portrayed in movies. I feel like, I've seen that a lot. Where it's
endlessly.
More often than not. Oh, yeah, Joseph's comment.
Yeah, it's really good. So for a while, mental illness was just portrayed as crazy, like the people on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Totally. I mean,
actually, though, Joseph, that at the time, that film was lauded for portraying such an authentic,
really,
very nuanced view of mental illness.
I've actually read
very
that
nuanced.
book. It's tough, but it is. They did a nice job of transitioning it, but also, yes, I think there was a lot more gray area in. But he's not wrong because I think what the kind of point is like if you've never seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but you've seen all the promotional stuff for it, it's all the craziest moments in the movies.
Yeah.
So if you
more often than not, mental illness has been portrayed in a negative light by entertainment, and this affects the way that we view. This in turn affects the way that we view mental illness. And often the information is inaccurate and creates a false portrayal, which we then use to stigmatize people, which has a harmful effect on many people. And some of those harmful effects are that it might discourage people from getting the help that they need. It might promote discrimination in the workplace, school, or any social setting, cause isolation because of the fear. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. It's just a quick example. I had a coworker that I worked with, and, she quietly came to me and said, I'm bipolar, and, these are, this is happening. These are the issues. This is why. And like, to me, I was like, okay, like that, like what, that's not, I wasn't diagnosed bipolar at the time, by the way, but I was like this isn't a big deal. Like, I don't know why, you're really quietly coming to tell me, but I think it comes from that stigma that we've grown up with in entertainment and just life, that you can't share that, right? That's a bad thing when it's not a bad thing.
Well, even when I share my diagnosis, and we talked about this when we spoke, when we had our episode about PTSD, is all the connotations that go with that, and immediately just being like, okay, you're this thing. That's because it's been portrayed that way, and that's definitely something that has been woven into entertainment as well.
But keep going, Julia. I'm sorry. This is very interesting.
No. I like you guys piping in. That's the point, to have a dialogue. We're having great dialogue, ladies.
I just want to say, Julia knows entertainment. She knows media. She's like in that world. So like, I'm just soaking it all in.
So listen to me.
Yes.
Damn it.
I am the knower of things.
So one reason that mental illness is so misrepresented in films and TV shows is that it's just misunderstood, as we've said already. However, sometimes writers purposely misrepresent mental illness simply because it creates more conflict, and conflict is what draws the audience in. And so they're trying to create as much conflict as possible. They're having these extreme behaviors in this character. So, like in...
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Right, I know.
like a good movie, but like...
It's a tough line to walk because I believe in artistic freedom. Like, you know, I die on the sword for that. But then again, like... Do you have a social responsibility to be somewhat accurate to a degree, so that you're not creating false information?
I think this one stands to, I think this is where we have to give ourselves and our community and our, you know, peers and our neighbors and whatever not. This is where we have to meet each other in the middle and start learning about mental illness, so that when I'm watching an artistic portrayal of something and the person is being hysterical or is having some sort of manic episode in the portrayal of art, we can all go, okay, this is a fiction story. Because I think that the line between truth and fiction, especially in our world and the way that our, you know, I mean, look around, everyone. I don't need to get any more specific than that. The fine line between reality and what is going on out there right now is pretty fine now. And so when you have a society that effectively gets wound up over, you know, girls playing Ghostbusters or something like that, then you start to ask an artist to stop being an artist and start being a purveyor of making sure people aren't questioning what they're watching. And I don't think that's art. And I think you just said it, die on the sword for the artist expression, because that's art. That's what art's supposed to be about. It's supposed to elicit a specific response, whatever that response is. But you can't, we as a society need to meet we need to understand that we're going and watching fiction, a portrayal of X.
And we need to be doing, I think what we're doing is like talking about mental illness and what mental illness is. And yeah, I'm not videotaping myself and putting out in here and showing you a manic episode or a really severe depressive episode, but we can talk about it, like every experience is going to be different. We can know that. And if you open that dialogue and then I go watch a movie that portrays something that might not be accurate, I'm going to be like, well, okay.
And the people that you've explained it to and the people that have talked to you about that are also going to have that reaction too. And that's when you know that your society and the people around you are becoming educated and destigmatizing it, where you can all go, oh, that's really funny that they portray that person as, climbing up a tree and screaming and doing all that stuff. That's really silly stuff. That's not anything like what actual mental illness is. But
yeah.
Sorry,
Jillian.
No, it's fine. Mentally ill people are often portrayed as being violent and unpredictable, when in reality, most actually mentally ill people are neither violent nor entirely unpredictable. Like in Shutter Island, there are 9 instances of the schizophrenic lead character engaging in violent behavior and 4 instances of self-inflicted violence. And in Beautiful Mind, there was 4 instances of the schizophrenic lead character engaging in violence with others and 3 instances of self-inflicted violence. So this is what we're seeing on screen, where we're seeing, especially with schizophrenic characters, just a lot of violence and general unruliness. But the truth is that only about 4% of violence in the U.S. can be traced back to mental health problems at all.
Yeah, because why would you get treated?
Yeah.
People that are in treatment are less likely to be violent, and they are less likely to have those outbursts because they have their medical condition is being treated. So if they have those urges, it's different than, that's unfortunate, because as someone who knows people with schizophrenia diagnoses, it's very it's just as difficult to live with that diagnosis as it is to live with any other diagnosis without having somebody run around being like, this is the one that makes all the crazies.
I think another one that I've seen, Julia, and tell me if I'm wrong, but is like a multiple personality disorder.
Yeah,
where
that's
it's
always
taken
portrayed
to the
incorrectly.
big exact. Yeah. It's a big one.
That is a big one. I wish I knew more about it, but I do know that it's not like most of what you see is completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
And countering that message. I mean, that's what we're trying to do in our little corner of the internet here. But I think that countering those messages that are out there. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? Those messages are going to be out there. Just like
course.
all the other things in the world are out there that are bad for us. But like, let's talk about it. Let's work through it. Let's find solutions. And if that means maybe you're not comfortable seeing a movie, okay. Like, we got to work on that. But I just think we have to have a dialogue. And that is what is missing. In my life, it was missing until now. And that I joined you girls. And boy, it changes everything.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Ditto. And actually, most people with psychiatric disorders are not only able to function in society, but most of them are able to work successfully or many of them, and make substantial contributions to society. So it's quite the opposite of the way it's portrayed. So some of the most common misrepresentations of mental illness in television and film are, one, that they're violent. We already talked about that. They look different. Mental health disorders are all the same and all very extreme. We already talked about that. Mental hospitals are evil. I think that's a big one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the asylum.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have to say though, with somebody who, and I would never wish this on anybody, if you have you get a hold on yourself and you're in a hospital setting, that is a little bit like you see in the movies. Like, it's not pretty compared to a private institution. I just have to say that.
And that sort of jumps back into like what you mentioned money earlier, where it's like, because if you are in a situation, you have the ability and people advocating for you and you're able to advocate for yourself, like we talked about last week, you can put yourself in a position to be in the best possible thing. But if you're, one of the many, many, many of us in this world who are unfortunate and don't have access or don't live in a place that has anything like that close to them, or which is a lot of America, you can end up in, a situation that makes it worse.
Yeah.
And that's something that needs to, again, that's where we get into the like societal talking about it again,
Sure.
Where we make it so that everybody doesn't have to go through some horror movie because they don't live in the right place, or we're not a compassionate enough society to offer mental health care and just general health care to everybody.
Yeah. Another one is that suicide is often glorified and romanticized.
Yeah.
And this especially affects teens, which I think it's the one of the leading causes of death for teens, aged 13 to 18 maybe. And so, like in that show, 13 Reasons Why, did you guys watch that?
I've never seen it.
I know what it is. Yes.
It's, in my opinion, it's a terrible show. But the main character committed suicide, but it was like to get revenge on all these people who had wronged her. And it was like, you don't commit suicide to get revenge. You commit suicide because you're in like the deepest pain you've ever experienced, and everything is black and it's never going to be light again. And there's no hope, and there's nothing, and nothing matters anymore. And your family doesn't even matter anymore. That's why people try to commit suicide. It's not to get revenge on someone who passed a note on you in class. So I think that one comes up with a lot of teen film and TV. And also the last sort of tenet that, or trope that is used a lot is that they never recover. People never recover they never get into recovery from their mental illness, which I think is another good point.
Yeah.
At least we're blowing the doors off that one right now, this very minute, because we can. Recovery is a temporary state of being when you're in mental health situations, but it isn't all at the same time. Like, it's when you are in a recovery situation, what am I trying to say here? Let me backtrack a little. we start to recover by getting the help that we need. And many of us are doing that now. And more of us are seeing that it's okay to do that. And that, so the portrayal of no, we never, none of us ever recover. We're forever crazy. That, well, it's kind of the opposite of what we're talking about. I mean, it's sort of the whole reason that we started in on the topic is that, these are the things that are out there doing this to us.
Yeah. I think
and as those of us with mental illness or who are close to someone with mental illness knows, there are light and dark sides to our illnesses. And, often enough, it is the dark sides that are portrayed in film and television in order to entertain or to drive home a point. But that light side does exist too, and that's really important to remember because otherwise we're just often adding to the stigmatization of the disease.
We're living proof right now. Like we all have a mental health condition or something going on, and we're here every week, right? But you see us like this. You don't see. That's what I'm trying to say. The black and white.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, because all of us will not want to put that person out there anyway, which is kind of the underlying thing. I think it's kind of difficult to portray mental health because it can be very personal. So it's if you're not someone that is experiencing it, maybe we just need to get more people with mental health experience out there talking about it. One of my favorite people in the entire entertainment industry, and R.I.P. Carrie Fisher, because she talked
about it all the time.
One of my favorite stories about her at the end there is that they had her urn was a Prozac pill because it was something it was her daughter and her brother that did that. And that is the message that I would want to send to the world if I were leaving it, is that keep talking about it, guys. Keep there was a documentary that was sort of the big documentary towards the end of her life, and it was her and her mom. And content warning because it might hit some soft spots for people that have mental illness, but at the same time, it's a great portrayal, and it's an honest it's a documentary of her and her helping her mother and them understanding their bipolar and their mental illness and their family and the alcoholism. And it makes me cry, but it also makes me feel very uplifted because that's one of my first heroes. And when you're a little kid, you don't necessarily know why you're, passionate or attracted to something in media. And when you have that person and that person is sort of on a journey where you go, oh, that's a rich lady who could have just not done anything with her platform. And she actually used it and did it at a time when it was really controversial to do it. She was already talking about this stuff in the 80s and 90s. You know what I mean?
But not just that. She took it to another level. She has a comedy special. It might have been one of her last ones. I can't remember the name. That was phenomenal. Amazing, where she talks about sex, mental health, her life, everything. But the fact that she can just have some humor about it is, I think, what we all need a little bit of. We need to laugh about it a little bit. We're all screwed up, but hey, we're living.
Laughter is the
one day at a time.
One day at a time. Yeah.
So those were kind of the negative stereotypes that are often portrayed, but sometimes mental illness is portrayed accurately. And again, even though artistic freedom needs to be preserved, it is great to see when they are portrayed accurately because it can be a relief to those who are suffering silently from these disorders. They can say, oh, I feel like that. That looks like me. I do that. And suddenly you're relating to someone. Yeah. So some of the movies and shows that have done a good job over the years, of course, it's a matter of opinion, but these are my opinions. For bipolar disorder, Homeland, and you can say what you will about Carrie's character, but she was
no, I agree with that. It's a great portrayal.
And she was a well-rounded character who happened to be bipolar and have those symptoms, but it didn't define her whole life. She was this very successful, CIA agent. And Silver Linings Playbook, which we already talked about. For depression, The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Oh.
Wishful thinking was the
wishful drinking.
Wishful drinking.
Oh, wishful drinking. Yeah.
What was it called? Wallflower?
The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
I love that.
I have not seen that. I will have to check that out.
And it's kind of
Cute.
a funny story.
It's really cute.
Good.
So if anyone's looking for a good movie to watch on depression, it's kind of a funny story. It's a good one. Psychosis, Black Swan. It's a good look at psychosis.
Oh.
Interesting.
For PTSD, Jacob's Ladder is a rather, I think, I don't know. You'd have to tell me, Mel, if it's authentic or not, but it seems to be rather authentic. For dissociative disorder, Girl Interrupted. Such a good movie. Anxiety disorder, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, God.
I love that movie.
I know.
I love her hair. I love her blue hair.
It just, yeah.
And then OCD, The Aviator.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
It's really good. Check it out. So you guys have some viewing
Yeah.
homework.
We got a movie list from this one. Awesome.
That's awesome. I know.
Okay, that's fair. The Good Will Hunting is actually a pretty good one as well.
That is a good one too.
Thanks, Blair.
Yeah, definitely. That is a good one, though. I can't not watch that movie when it comes on. It's
a
ridiculous.
feel-good movie.
Yeah.
They really kind of get it right. I mean, there's a lot. There's very relatable stuff in that one for me.
Yeah.
So, especially the accent. Oh, kidding.
But mental illness is such a huge part of the human condition. So to not depict it on screen would really be to miss out on this massive subject, which affects people on a daily basis. So even though entertainment's still figuring out how to get it exactly right, I think it needs to remain, I think everyone agrees it needs to remain part of the conversation, like we're saying, to continue that dialogue. And there are things that can be done in the meantime. So entertainment professionals this can help reduce mental health stigma. They can educate themselves to strive to portray better truth. They can consider the consequences of providing false information before they do it. Meeting and connecting with real people who have been diagnosed with the disorders that they're portraying. I think that's the most important one. Portraying some mental health problems in a positive light and showing some characters who recover. And then choosing their language carefully. Language is a huge part of this. How we refer to things is really so paramount to how the takeaways that people have about stigmatization. So those are some things that can be done to
But
help.
who's doing that? Is that the people that have all the money up top, or producer? Is it just directors, producers?
I don't think. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just feel like people at the top don't care what is going out there. And I think the 3 words, we've touched on them, and often I try and be very, I don't censor myself much, but I don't like using 3 words, which are crazy, nuts, and hysterical. And I try to limit my use of those to when I'm joking, like being facetious or parroting something, because I think that those 3 words are, when you hear a person being negative about you, I'm not crazy is such a, moment. I mean, believe me, I ask myself often if I am crazy, because I'll be, watching. I'm like, am I crazy? Am I taking crazy pills even? But no, but I do think that those are the words that when you get a negative vibe off a person, well, no, I'm not going to admit I'm crazy, or I'm not going nuts or anything. So I'm not censoring language. I'm saying that those are the 3 things that you hear. And especially as women, we've heard hysterical in our life way more than we want to deal with. And it doesn't matter what age woman you are. I pray to God that my 8-year-old niece is never hearing that word, but I live in the real world, and I know that it's been thrown around at some point by somebody out in the world. Don't get hysterical. And I think we all know what a person is saying when they tell you not to be hysterical when you're a lady. I think that most of us have grown up enough to know what they're telling you is, it's like, dude, just tell me to calm my tits and let's move on. So
I would say, I don't think it's just women. I think, to be honest, sometimes men might get the worst end of it, because people don't expect men to, I think, have a mental illness, have something they're vulnerable to.
They don't
where
describe
women
men don't get described as hysterical. They get described as crazy or, God, it's like passionate sometimes. So you're being very passionate.
yeah.
And it's like, but they're
So,
not
I mean,
using passionate in a way that's being positive. It's very much, and men do get the short end of the stick because they're definitely not even allowed. Like for us, it's expected. For them, they're not allowed.
yeah,
No,
I mean,
you
I
don't-
can
you
be
don't
like,
get to have mental health at all because you're a man, and men don't have mental health. So
yeah, I think sometimes that can be a little bit of a stereotype.
But to answer
should
your
we-
question, I think
Wow.
a lot of it starts in the writer's room with the language.
Yeah,
because,
that's true. You're right.
That's when the characters are created and developed. And that's when you're putting these nuances in there as far as their personality traits, or not nuances, big things like personality traits.
Mhm.
So I think that a lot of it starts with the writing.
yeah,
I think you're right.
it's because I mean those are the words that ultimately end up out there.
Yeah.
Words.
So is that it for? Are we done on
So that
entertainment
was a
and
look
social
at
media? Is that a
entertainment.
wrap?
That was a wrap on entertainment and mental illness.
That's good.
Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you for sharing. I'm just gonna touch on money a little bit. It's something that, before the show even started, when we were meeting and talking about this concept and what we were gonna do, I was like, well, money can be a little bit confusing. Like, let's define it. What do we mean when we're talking about money? So we have 4 different categories. We have money can cause mental health issues. Mental health care is expensive. Mental health issues can compound money problems, such as bipolar, depression, and I'm sure anxiety, things like that. And then pharmaceuticals. And what I found really interesting is that 1 in 5 adults in the United States experience a mental health problem in any given year. And yet they're limited or no mental health insurance prevents more than half of them from receiving treatment. 1 in 5, some people might not think that's a big number. I think that's pretty large, especially since our healthcare system is tied to what you do, right? You need to have a job to have healthcare. And I would say that's a pretty big barrier for some people. But I do have a little banner. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll kind of walk you through it. But it starts that like copays, there's copays for behavioral health services. And then an insurer sets limits on how many days a patient can stay in treatment in a facility. This is on treatment. Sorry, I'm confused. So insurers set limits on how many days a patient can stay in treatment, or how many times they can see a behavioral health provider. Which have you guys experienced that? Because I have.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you get like, what is it? It's like 60 visits or 30 visits or something like that in a calendar year. And the problem with that works both ways. That one swings both ways. So my therapist's organization has had a situation where they're like, you need to see her more often because the state is saying that this doesn't justify that she needs mental health care, and they're putting these abstract limits on these things. And so now I need to get inside 2 visits inside the calendar month, or else there's a state thing, and then my insurance might start to, it's like, it's not doctors and therapists who should be the people that are telling us how many times we need to see them. That should be based on our doctor and our therapist, and whatever in or outpatient therapies that we have should be coming from medical health professionals. But it's coming from the insurance company because, well, if you only see them once a month, I don't get your copay twice a month. Right? I mean, what's $30 a month when I can get $60 a month, and tell you it's because well, our numbers are telling us that this doesn't constitute a mental health, unless you see your therapist at least 2 times a month. Like, you're not even using all your visits. How can you possibly say that you're mentally ill?
But there's more. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Insurer charges more for prescription medication from behavioral health treatment. I mean,
Yep.
How do I take this off? Yes, they absolutely do. You have no idea
Katrina has some personal
expensive.
experience with that.
How expensive mental health. Well, we're going to get to my issue. I can't wait. It's number 6 on the list. But this is a no-brainer. And I've had doctors literally just shoving medications at my face as well because they're going to get a kickback from it.
Yep. Take
Like
this
it
drug.
might not be
even though
beneficial.
Right. It's not necessarily the
Yeah.
right drug for you, but they got me lobster dinner and new rims for my car
Exactly.
last month. So
Exactly. And I've really had to talk about like self-advocacy from last week. You really do need to take control of that situation and say like, this is working. I don't need something on top of that, which usually I've had them do. But let's keep going. Number 4, insurer makes patient get permission before starting in or continuing behavioral health.
yep.
Yeah, your doctor has to write into your insurance company saying, yeah, this is valid and needed. I love that.
Yeah, again, the insurance company is overtaking what the professionals are saying because
Exactly.
money. Because money.
Not money. So insurer forces patient to try a less expensive treatment before pursuing treatment recommended by a doctor. Have you ever had that happen to you?
I've had this direct experience with my primary. Yeah. This is my primary that I am on right now, was what they call a non-formulary for an extended period of time. So I was paying something like 75% out of pocket for my primary drug that was the first drug that they could find to help me. It was a drug that was approved in Canada, South America. The Euro was distributing it at a reduced cost because it was a very effective with low side effects drug for what I was taking. But because the United States insurance companies didn't feel that it had been out there in trials long enough, which I know translates to it wasn't owned by the right company. That drug, I paid 75% out of pocket, and it was hundreds of dollars for a long time. And because I remember when I got it for a regular, what I would say is a regular price, for a 3-month supply of it. And I was like, are you sure you gave me the right drug? And they said, oh, no, yes, it came off the non-formulary list finally. But that's like, 3 years into my treatment, 4 years in. I've been in treatment for at least twice as long as that. So for, that happens a lot with gut drugs too. So
I mean, I think it was number 5. My example of what I've been going through is I had to take a brand name drug. And what I'm calling a brand name drug is something that the people that make that script, they haven't made a generic for yet, right? So you're paying like a lot of money.
Non-formulary is the insurance term for it.
Non-formulary. So to get this drug, first of all, it's insanely expensive. It's like $1,800. Not the most expensive, but it's expensive. So my doctor was kind enough to like give me samples. Like, I'll just give you samples. Well, with COVID happening, they're not getting as many samples, and they didn't have my milligram. I was off this drug for a week and a half. I'm calling my doctor's prescription lady, who's amazing. Thank God, I love you. And I'm like, listen, send it to the pharmacy, and I will pay full price. I don't care. Just send it.
Because were you having side effects from being off?
Oh yeah, I was having side effects from not being on it, really bad. And thank you, Julia. And they didn't. So it got denied. It got denied by the insurance company, and this was over the weekend. So a whole weekend goes by. I call Monday morning. I'm like, listen, I got to get this drug. And it took me, I think I said last week, like saying I'll pay full price, for her to be like, no, you're not going to pay full price, but we're going to get you this drug at your copay. It took a year and a half to make that happen. A year and a half.
But they did make it happen?
But they did make it happen. So I love them. Thank you.
Yeah. That's great that they were able to, and good for you, because the advocacy point that we talk. I mean, we had that great show with Dennis. It's
so how much are you paying now?
15, like a normal copay.
Wow, instead of 1,800.
Yeah, I mean but it's again only for 12 months because it's through a coupon. It's through like multiple coupons that I had to get. Which, by the way, if you are ever needing a medication and it is outrageously expensive, there are coupons out there. There are nonprofits that help you get medications or help you seek therapies. I will put all that in the description below after this show. But please know that like just like a Google search, it can be really beneficial and really help you.
And that's a really good point, because I think that this happens to a lot of people. And again, it was the same exact thing. They didn't have a generic form of my drug. So it was the same exact thing. And I did get samples for a long time. Fortunately, it was inside of the window and it didn't take too long, like you're talking about. But the going off of your drugs, that contributes to your mental health in a negative way. And that there in the money thing there. And also, so for that entire time that you were struggling with that, you were struggling with your mental health, you were struggling with an insurance company situation, and you were struggling, and the doctor was struggling to treat you properly. That is those barriers.
Great self-advocacy, Katrina.
Right? All it takes is asking the right questions. And it really was me telling them, I don't care. I will pay $1,800, which I don't know how I would have paid it. But like, like for them to be like, no, like you're not going to do that. And it was the best thing. But let me finish this out here. The last one is insurer refuses to pay for residential behavioral health treatment recommendations are recommended. And I've seen this before.
That's happened to me.
Yeah. Ugh.
I was in treatment and I was in inpatient, and insurance decided they were moving me out of inpatient into residential. And I was like so shocked. I mean, I had just been through this trauma, and then I was in this state of shock. And I became convinced that I was in like a very fragile state. And so I became convinced that all the work I'd been doing in inpatient was like out the window. None of it mattered. Like, it was all worthless. Everything had been a waste of time because I was leaving too soon. And I was so stressed and had so much anxiety about it. And, I ended up making the most out of residential and everything worked out, but it definitely was like a traumatic experience and nothing that interns should have been involved in, because the treatment center was saying that I needed more time.
So you're already in medical crisis, and let's stop calling it mental or anything else. You're already in crisis with your mental, physical, whatever, with your health. And here comes a company who knows nothing but a number on a balance sheet to tell you and your doctor and the nurses and the facility, this unilateral voice that's continuing to stand in the way of us getting our treatment. Like, it isn't hard enough to live with and treat and function daily with mental health situations. But here we are being held at bay by a system that is constantly throwing up barriers unless we pay to get those barriers removed.
Absolutely.
It's
very unfortunate. But like I said, I want you to know if you need help, there are organizations and things to help you. There's coupons. Even your doctor, like, ask for help. Don't be afraid to say, like, I can't do that or I need help with that. Like, we just need to start talking. Like, let's just start talking.
And treating each other right. It doesn't hurt. You don't have to be mean. You can simply ask your doctor, is there anything you can do to help? And I think a lot of doctors
start with, I'm so sorry. Just like Dennis said, I'm so sorry. But
this is my health, and I've been this way for a week, and I've been off the medication, which is dangerous. Never go off your medication. I mean, it's one of these horrible things that we live with on the daily, where we have to worry about exactly what you had to deal with or any combination of that thing. That puts you in swings. You could click into a bad 100%. Gear for going off your meds. I mean, in my case, if I went off some of my medications, it could instantly trigger a seizure potentially. It puts me in a high risk of having a seizure, having a which I've been seizure free for 10 years, rock on. Exactly. And that, but, I needed surgery for that, and I need to be in constant, and my mental health needs to be in check as part of my treatment for that. And we should be better than that. I think if we all started talking to each other about these things, I know that just doing this, we've already had some people, again, regular viewers that are coming in and hanging out with us, people that are reaching out to me in my personal life, or saying, yeah, thanks, Joseph. Thanks, Kia. Because we can start giving each other these tips, like you just said, where we're going to throw those things in there where there are programs with coupons. I have like the most benevolent pharmacists in the world, and they do the thing all the time where they're like, well, I have this coupon here, and they just scan it for you. Because once you get to know them, like you said, having that relationship with the person that Dennis talked about, I know them by name. They scan the coupon for me every time on this one. Well, I can't get it down under this certain price, but I can get you $10 off it. And they don't have to take the time to do that, but that's the relationship that you've built there. And
you build it. Yeah, for sure.
Sweet.
Well, you guys, my computer is going to die, and I think this was a freaking fantastic show. I learned so much. Always thank both of you for not joining me, but being a part of this group and talking about our issues. And if you're out there, like, subscribe, comment, reach out. We want to build this community together.
Are we going to save the other topics for next week?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to die.
Oh, okay.
No, okay. Do not worry. She is not going to die. Her electronic machine is going to pass out.
No, my computer. It's going to pass out. So my apologies. We will do a little more of this in the beginning of next show, but it won't take too much time.
Yes, I'm interested.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Kia.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Common Club. Bye, everyone.
Save everybody.
AKA Blair.
Don't blow. Kayfabe. Kayfabe.